asking for sympathy, you know. He sent it to you.
I don't send everybody out.
I mean, he knows what he's doing. No one's that naive. To find guests for next week's lecture.
Huh?
Find guests for next week's lecture.
No comment. And HOS also was no comment.
Yeah, she's not responding.
Why?
Bitch. I don't know. The community people are all like this only.
You know, right? I think I can say.
I'll go to her department and now ask where are you now. I'll do it. What's the worst? What's
Yeah,
going
she said yes for initially.
on? I'll get a haircut.
वो निकाल लेना उसमें पड़ा है
Kid.
मैंने खाली वो पहली इंडिया जब और देख के अभी
Let's go. Ahmed is here. You know, actually, what I should do?
What?
I'm gonna make a new proposal. There's no moderator. There's no anchors.
Huh.
Whoever is like, what are the participants are there in the group? They should be both act as both anchor and moderator. When required, both should be anchor and moderator. Finally, she seems. Uh, Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're perfectly audible.
All right.
And can we start with the session right away?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Just a second.
Yeah. So, Saumali, you can start with your introduction. Meanwhile, ma'am gets ready.
Good evening, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, you are, sir.
All right. Hello, ma'am, and thank you for joining
Please.
us today. And I would like to thank everyone else who just today. I'm sorry. Yeah. I am very excited to speak with Ma'am Astha Chadda, an accomplished legal professional and a passionate advocate for women and children's rights. Astha Ma'am is a third-generation lawyer with experience in advisory and litigation in civil law, IBC, matrimony, and such. She holds a bachelor's degree in law from Chaudhry Charan Singh University and her master's from Kurukshetra University. Ma'am has been actively advocating for the rights of women and children and periodically uploads various videos and infographics educating the masses regarding the same, such as that of domestic violence, abuse, POSH Act, inheritance, and so on. In addition to this, Astha Ma'am has also been actively involved in various pro bono initiatives aimed at promoting access to justice and legal literacy. Her insights and perspectives will undoubtedly be invaluable to us as law students as well as us as women. Ma'am, I would like to ask you what perked your interest in law and in specific this field.
Right. So my interest in law goes down to when I was a toddler. My grandfather was a lawyer, so I used to crawl to his office and just sit in his lap while he was conducting his client meetings. There was no plan to join law. Rather, it was always discouraged. that litigation is not for women, right? The courts are not women friendly in general. But somehow, as I grew up, I took commerce. I wanted to become a CA. But वहाँ भी law मिला. And जब उसके entrance में law पढ़ा, so somehow I fell in love with the subject again. Then in first year, when I read Hindu law, I knew I loved the subject. So although my master's is in commercial litigation, business laws, and I practice a lot of that, but this is a passion that it is still going on. So much so that my friends in college would also, tease me when I was in first year, second year, that she'll become a divorce lawyer. So this is a passion project. And rather, I saw that there are a lot of laws, but nobody knows about them. Especially the people for whom the laws are made. And by that, I don't necessarily mean women. I mean citizens in general. They don't know the laws that protects them. Although I think we have a lot of laws in India. We have a very dynamic constitution, and then we've made several acts which are beautifully made. Although I agree, they are evolving with time because the society is evolving.
Right.
So yes, so I think they should, people should know, and that is why the endeavor to make videos on that.
All right, ma'am. So, ma'am, on that note, on the note of accessing the information that is the legal field, ma'am, on a fundamental level, how would you say that a woman? Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
So I am saying that how can you say on a fundamental level how a woman, if she's harmed in a way that typically women are, how can she access the law?
How can she act if she's harmed?
Yes, ma'am.
But firstly, we need to. You just used the word the typical way.
In a typical way that women are carried.
Correct. So firstly, we need to understand that there is a lot of harm that happens except for the typical way. Normally, we assume that either there'll be sexual harassment of some sort or there'll be physical abuse of some sort. What we forget about is the mental health that is affected or the gaslighting that happens, which we can also term as mental abuse. And most of all, women in India or women in general in the world are not financially sound. Even if they are making money, they are not managing their money. They are just giving it away to somebody to manage it. So financial abuse is also a huge part. So women in general don't only need to know the laws that protect them or the rights, they also need to take care of their finances. So I think we need legal literacy in school, we also need financial literacy in school. We need to learn both. So now coming back to the point, there are a lot of ways women are subjected to harassment or whatever you call them, abuse. One can be in the outside world, where a stranger typically teases you or abuses you sexually or so on and so forth. For that, we always have the police to go to. Right? The police will have to listen to a woman. Secondly, we have to also see that what if the police is not treating us well. So, like we see in movies, कि लेडीज को पुलिस ही हैरेस कर रही है या जबरदस्ती पुलिस स्टेशन बुला रही है तो वो आपको नहीं बुला सकते. सो यू नीड टू नो द लॉ टू नो दैट, राइट? देन आपको रात को नहीं बुला सकते हैं पुलिस स्टेशन, आपको अरेस्ट नहीं कर सकते हैं पोस्ट सनसेट एंड बिफोर सनराइज विदाउट जुडिशियल इंटरफेरेंस. अगर उनको करना है, if they think it is so imminent, then they first need to go to the judge, judicial magistrate first class, and then they need to seek a prior order for that. And this law was made for women's security, right? But
Interesting, no?
Let's come to something जहाँ हम अपना सबसे ज़्यादा टाइम बिताते हैं. It's neither the roads, it's nor a public place. There are two places जहाँ हम सबसे ज़्यादा अपना टाइम बिताते हैं. First is our homes. और कहते हैं ना, people who have control, emotional control over us have more power to hurt us in so many ways because they have command over us, right? So उसके लिए ही domestic violence act बना था. Now I think it is आजकल बहुत बदनाम है ये. People think it is being misused, or people think that women use this law for harassment. But how can they use this law for harassment? What does this law give you? It gives you shelter, residence right? It gives you money, that is maintenance. It gives you protection, that there'll be no further abuse. It gives you the custody of your child till your custody battles are pending or till this case is pending. So इसमें क्या women abuse कर देंगी? They can't send you to jail because of the Domestic Violence Act. It is a civil act. Although बहुत बड़ी बड़ी बातें करी जाती हैं that इसमें जेल भिजवा देती हैं and all that, right? Because somewhere we confuse between 498A and D, right? So तो ये एक्ट है. तो इससे क्या होता है, जैसे आई जस्ट टोल्ड यू, women need to be financially independent, which they are not. तो इंडिया में तो ये रूल भी कहीं नहीं है. लाइक वी हैव सम कंट्रीज वेयर व्हाटएवर रिसोर्सेज आर मेड इन द स्पैन ऑफ द मैरिज, वो 50-50 हो जाता है. मे बी इफ यू आर मैरिड फॉर 10 years और डिफरेंट टेन्योर फॉर डिफरेंट कंट्रीज. इंडिया में ऐसा कोई लॉ नहीं. सो इंडिया में आप ऑब्वियसली व्हेन यू गेट मैरिड, फर्स्टली एज अ मैटर ऑफ आपकी चॉइस बोली जाती है, टेक केयर ऑफ द हाउस और द चाइल्ड. समटाइम्स इट्स a choice, sometimes you are being told or made to choose. But उससे होता क्या है, हमने सोसाइटी कैसे बनाई थी? सोसाइटी इन जनरल ऐसे थी, एक केयर गिवर होगा, एक ब्रेड अर्नर होगा. बट उस टाइम पे इंडिया में डिवोर्स का कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं था, स्पेशली हिंदूज में नहीं था. जैसे इस्लामिक लॉ है, उसमें डिवोर्स का कॉन्सेप्ट है, जिसमें विमेन को भी राइट है अगर वो लेना चाहे तो, राइट? Hindus mein, if you got married, then you would take care of the house, the man would earn, and the family would run that way. But अब क्या है, with the increasing number of divorce cases, आपकी uncertainty बढ़ गई. So I've seen so many clients of mine who were at great positions in MNCs, doing very well before marriage, but now they don't have money, and they are 40, 45, 50. So at the end हो क्या जाता है कि आपको कोर्ट, बिकॉज ये लॉ नहीं है कि शादी के बीच में जो मिला वो दोनों का, तो पैसा सारा हस्बैंड का है. तो अगर आपको कोर्ट जाना है तो आपको कोर्ट को प्रूव करना है हाउ यू आर सो डेस्टिट्यूट और पुअर दैट यू नीड बेसिक सस्टेनेंस, विच इज अ प्रॉब्लम आई फील. सो ये लॉ है, बट जब तक आप फाइनेंशियल लिटरेसी नहीं लाओगे तब तक ये करना पड़ेगा. सो मेरा एक, आई ऑलवेज, व्हेनेवर समबडी आस्क्स मी व्हाट वुड यू like to change, I always say I would like कि at least within my lifetime मुझे लड़कियों के लिए maintenance cases ना लड़ने पड़े, because that day it happens, पता इसका मतलब होगा कि लड़कियां कमा रही हैं enough. तो I think एक ये है जब हम अपने घर के अंदर हैं, एंड दूसरा है जहां हम ऑफिस में हैं, जहां हम काम करते हैं. सो उसके लिए there is POSH, sexual harassment at workplace, जिसमें हर ऑफिस के अंदर इंटरनल कंप्लेंट्स कमिटीज हैं, एटलीस्ट होनी चाहिए. ऑल्दो सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज वेरी रिसेंटली, अ फ्यू डेज बैक, ऑब्जर्व्ड कि हमारी स्पोर्ट्स फेडरेशंस तक में नहीं है. देयर आर नो ICCs इन आवर स्पोर्ट्स फेडरेशन एंड पीपल आर नॉट टेकिंग ICC सीरियसली, राइट? तो ये एक चीज है जो ये दोनों आपको लॉस पता होने चाहिए. सेकेंडली, व्हाट इफ योर कंपनी इज नॉट टेकिंग योर कंप्लेंट सीरियसली? पुलिस पे जाने का तो, बिकॉज इट्स सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट, पुलिस पे जाने का राइट आपसे किसी ने नहीं छीना. आपकी कंपनी आपको फोर्स नहीं कर सकती टू नॉट गो टू द पुलिस. रादर इन केस दे फील दैट एक्चुअली द ऑफेंस हैज बीन कमिटेड, दे विल आल्सो हेल्प यू गो देयर. बट मेजॉरिटी टाइम्स क्या होता है, जो भी अग्रेसर होता है वो इन पोजिशन ऑफ पावर होता है. तो देयर आर टाइम्स इन प्रैक्टिकल वर्ल्ड, ऑल्दो लॉ में नहीं है, इन वर्ड्स, बट इन प्रैक्टिकल वर्ल्ड आर सो मेनी टाइम्स सीइंग कि ICC भी बायस्ड हो सकता है.
Right. So
that you need to know how to maneuver.
Right, ma'am. So I had a question that kabhi you see that when a woman goes to the police station, they say they really jumble her ki jurisdiction nahi hai, and then they really confuse her and she's left with no choice. How do you?
ये सिर्फ women के साथ नहीं होता, पुलिस की फर्स्ट, ये तो सबके साथ है. आप अच्छा, पहले तो दो वर्ड्स में डिफरेंशिएट कर लेते हैं. इफ यू हैव समबडी हु इज नॉट अ लॉ स्टूडेंट, कंप्लेंट और FIR दो बिल्कुल अलग चीजें हैं. नॉर्मली जब हम पुलिस स्टेशन जाते हैं तो हम बोलते हैं हम FIR लिखाने जा रहे हैं, बट पुलिस इतनी आसानी से FIR लिखती नहीं. And there have been various Supreme Court judgments also जो पुलिस को बोलते हैं कि आप ऐसी किसी के खिलाफ FIR मत लिखिए, you do a preliminary inquiry over that. तो आप जब पुलिस स्टेशन जाते हैं तो आप एक अपनी कंप्लेंट लेके जाते हैं. नॉर्मली पुलिस का फर्स्ट रिस्पॉन्स टू ईच एंड एवरी पर्सन होता है कि ये तो हमारी जुरिस्डिक्शन नहीं है, आप इस थाने चले जाओ, फिर वहां से आपको दूसरा, वहां से तीसरा. एंड फॉर अ लेमन इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट पुलिस स्टेशन निकालना अपने एरियाज का, क्योंकि बहुत छोटे छोटे डिस्टेंसेस पे बने हुए हैं, राइट? तो उसमें विमेन के पास एक एडेड एडवांटेज है, स्पेशली फॉर ऑफेंसेस जैसे कि रेप हो गया, सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट हो गया, जो ऑफेंसेस अगेंस्ट विमेन इन जनरल हैं, इन रादर इन पर्टिकुलर है. आप उनको एक कॉन्सेप्ट है जीरो FIR का. यू कैन टेल द पुलिस दैट इट्स ओके, इंस्टेड ऑफ मेकिंग मी गो फ्रॉम वन पुलिस स्टेशन टू द अदर, you write a zero FIR. Now, what is a zero FIR? FIR का हमेशा एक नंबर होगा. FIR नंबर से XYZ oblique 2023, right? So number oblique year. अब zero FIR का मतलब इस FIR को अभी नंबर नहीं मिला है. So वो पुलिस का काम है उसको appropriate पुलिस स्टेशन भेजना. Because you can't, the law feels कि एक traumatized lady को आप एक पुलिस स्टेशन से दूसरे पुलिस स्टेशन के चक्कर नहीं कटवा सकते.
Right.
बट नॉर्मली लोगों को पता ही नहीं होता, तो लोग खुद को असर्ट ही नहीं करते. और ऐसा नहीं है कि विमेन स्पेसिफिक केसेस में जीरो FIR का कॉन्सेप्ट इज देयर फॉर ऑलमोस्ट एवरीबडी, बट यू हैव टू सी.
Ma'am, Nihal wanted to ask a question, so please, you have the floor.
Ma'am, I do have a request.
Sure.
Could you try speaking more of in English, because we have international students over here in the meeting.
All right.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. That will be convenient.
Thank you, Nihal. Ma'am, on that note, I would like to ask that generally we see there has been a recent trend, not a recent, it's been a trend where women who have children with their husbands and the husband has wronged the woman, they have been denied the service and said that for the sake of your children you should try and save the marriage, and that's the wordings they have used instead of going through with the proceedings. So what are your views on the same?
My views are, look, you can never see a law or read a law in isolation.
Right.
You always have to read a law in context with the society the law is made for. And like I just said, before 1955, when the Hindu Marriage Act, because we are a majority Hindu country, right?
Right.
And that is one of the only personal laws which is codified. Right? So before 1955, there was no concept of a divorce. We always felt that once married, we have to live with this person for our lifetimes. Now the relationship can be any way. It could be a silent relationship, it could be a troubled relationship, it could be an abusive relationship. But we had to stay together because now we are there together for 7 lifetimes. That is how the society feels, right? Then in 1955, the Hindu Code came into play, where the Hindu Marriage Act brought in the concept of a divorce. Even in that time, the reasons for which you could take a divorce they were very extreme reasons, like a cruelty or an adultery, or maybe a desertion, where the one of the spouses has just left you for 2 years or more.
Right.
Or maybe conversion to another religion, because we are very focused on, personal laws are about which religion you belong to.
Right.
Or at that time there was also leprosy, venereal diseases. So these were extreme grounds. So much so that if you file a divorce on these grounds, there's hardly any chance you can go back into the marriage, because the amount of mudslinging that will happen, there's no chance of a reconciliation post that.
Right.
And so for proving, obviously, if somebody will tell the other person that they are adulterous, the other person will obviously defend. They'll not say that, okay, fine, give me a divorce on the ground of adultery or give me a divorce on the ground of cruelty, because the reputation is at stake, right? Then over a period of time, the society evolved. So we thought that, okay, 2 consenting individuals can take a divorce on mutual consent. They can just come to court, say that both of us, the respect and dignity with which we entered, we want to exit the marriage the same way. Right? That came in. Although majority of divorces in India happen by mutual consent, but they happen after years of litigation when the parties are tired of litigating. So it's not mutual, it's just two tired people who don't want to litigate anymore. Right? And they just withdraw all the cases and say we are very nice people and none of us will institute any cases against the other one. Then over a period of time, very recently, the Supreme Court has even talked of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. Although this concept has been there for very long. But now the Supreme Court has said that if there is no way back, then let them be. Right? So this is because this is a need of the society. The society, you can't be stuck, say 100 years back or 50 years back when a law was made. The law always evolves. And it evolves there are two ways for a law to evolve. Either the society needs the change. For example, live-in relationships. In 2005, when the Domestic Violence Act came into play, at that time, the society was emerging. So the lawmakers saw that state. And they thought that if we only keep a wife who can be a victim of domestic violence, what will happen of a woman who's not technically a wife, but she is also going through domestic violence? So in the definition of a victim, they added a live-in partner. The same way, there is no formal law for a live-in partner or a live-in relationship. But the Supreme Court in its judgments have given legitimacy or inheritance rights to the children from a live-in marriage.
Right.
They have given dignity to a live-in partner, both male and female. They've given maintenance rights to a living partner. So this is how, with society, the law evolves.
Ma'am, on that note, on the note of evolution of laws, ma'am, it's been 76 years since our independence. So do you think that strictly speaking statutorily or strictly speaking about the constitution, do you believe that it's at par with the needs of the society?
Okay. So some are, I'll tell you how. Some laws were made. Look, there are some things called beneficial legislations. Article 15 of our constitution says that the state will not make discriminatory laws, right? It will not discriminate against any person on so-and-so grounds. But there is an exception that for women and children, special laws can be made. Why? Because they understood at that time that they are vulnerable groups. And they are somewhere, the society is not equal for them. So we need to, push them a little up with laws which are protecting them, both women and children, right? So your question being that are they up to the mark? They never can be. I'll tell you how. Say, for example, let's take the example of the Hindu Succession Act.
Right.
Hindu Succession Act came in 1956. And I think it was a very progressive act for that time. It gave equal rights to a son and a daughter in their parents' property, both mother and father. Then over a period of time in 2005, they thought, nahi, the law is evolving. So we have an HUF, a Hindu Undivided Family. So a woman, a daughter will now be a co-parsoner, which is a member of the Hindu Undivided Family or Joint Hindu Family, from her birth, just like the son. So any co-partner's daughter will be a co-partner, right? Then a woman can also be a karta or the head or the managing, say for reference, if you talk about a company, maybe a managing director or a chairman. It's equivalent, because you take decisions for that family, right? So that came into play. One more thing. They also said that a daughter can be a co-partner. She will inherit the assets or the rights in the HUF just like a son, and also the liabilities just like a son. Because I always feel that the biggest disadvantage our daughters have is that they cannot take care of their parents. It's not that they are not getting enough rights, they're not even getting the liabilities, right? But I'm a huge critic of this law at this moment, and I've written about it on various forums. I've written articles on it, right? Because I feel that now the society has evolved to a place where women are bread earners. They are earning members.
Right.
Okay? So I'll give you a situation. Say, we'll compare between Nihal and Somali, right? So Nihal, if he forgets to write a will, his parents, especially his mother, will be first in line of succession. That is, even if he forgets to write a will, his property will go to his mother, then to his father, right? But if Somali, you forget to write a will,
Husband.
it will go to your husband, your children, same like Nihal. But Nihal's mother will be first in line of succession. You know where your parents will come? First, your husband and children, then your family of your husband. After that, your mother and father. And further, after, even if your mother and father are not there, then the family of your father, and lastly, the family of your mother. So even if in your parents, your father is given an upper edge in your inheritance. So there will be somebody or the other from the husband's distant relatives to claim your inheritance. And they come before your parents. So I'm a huge critic of this law. Right?
Ma'am,
Yes, Somali, continue, it's fine.
no, I wanted to give you the stage because you had.
Yeah, okay. Ma'am, since we're on the topic of reasonable classification and the law being in favor of women, I'll go against the trend right now because we're leading in favor of women to make this conversation a little more interesting. So, certain laws, especially in IPC, favors women and that is very much clearly visible. Ma'am, what I would like to ask is that in section 498B, which I believe is cruelty, there imposes a reverse burden on men. Don't you think when the law had made at that time, women was also obviously at a disadvantaged position, and that's why the constitution makers and the law makers, they put women in a higher pedestal than men and gave them more advantage. But we've come so far after independence, it has been almost 75 years. And don't you think at this point, all these laws which favors women are overcoming its benefit and being used as a weapon against men? And also at the same time, it has been clearly stated in the Malimat Committee report that fall cases against men have been used due to the fact of reverse burden. So, ma'am, what is your opinion that yes, it is clearly stated in the report, that's why it does exist, but what are the mechanisms we can overcome in this?
Okay. So first of all, 498A, there have been various reports that it is being misused. You know, it's very easy. This is my personal opinion because I practice a lot. So when women come to me and when we file cases, and sometimes, you know, they come to me at the final argument stage. And I see the file and I ask them, all right, you gave police your phone chats. Did you give, say, a section 65B affidavit with it? No, ma'am, nothing happened. Then this with it? No, ma'am, nothing happened. So we have to understand, are there zero women who are misusing laws? No, I'm not saying that. But always, like I said, we have to think with the society. So can we say that the number of women who are misusing laws are greater than the number of women who are being abused or beaten or humiliated and treated with cruelty for dowry or any other thing, say for a male child, for not being able to get pregnant, for not pursuing their career? 498A can be much more than only dowry. It can be much more than dowry. Okay, so first of all, whenever something goes against the status quo being that the society is male dominant and the power makers, even our committees are normally headed by men. Courts are also headed by men. The lawyers who are dealing with cases are also men. The fathers of the girl are also men because they choose. There are so many cases where women have come to me and said that my father is not okay with me taking the lawyer of my choice. I don't want to go to a male lawyer. They are snubbing me off and saying, this is no way, you should not file cases for this. Go and live with your family. So what? It happens. Right? Firstly, we have to understand what the scenario we are living with. This huge hue and cry at this moment. I'll take your point that there may be some women who are misusing laws. Lawyers only tell them that this is a law you have, right? But is the law not needed? Number one, is the law not needed? And number two, when initially this law was being misused and there were instant arrests, again the courts evolved and the court said we'll not arrest just at an FIR. And the courts are putting the onus on the prosecution. And I have seen the cases that the prosecution are making. Sometimes when we take the cases of complainants, we don't know how to prove them because there is no evidence on record despite the girl pleading that no, it happened. Because I'll tell you, when you get married, you are living into the house with your husband and his family. You can't live around with a CCTV camera or with a phone camera recording everything that's happening. Number one. Number two, there is so much control over you that you can't go to the doctor for an MLC every time. Number three, how are you going to prove that your mother-in-law or your father-in-law, say anybody from the family, took away your jewelry and kept it in their locker? The banks also don't know what is there in your locker. Right? So, if there is no need, I have seen these days women are finding it extremely tough to prove their cases. Recently, we had some Korean vlogger or somebody who was sexually abused by a man in Jodhpur or Udaipur someplace, right? But there are some internet sources, there are Instagram pages which are extremely against women misusing laws. Those same Instagram pages believed that woman because she was a vlogger and she had a camera in her hand. And it was recorded on camera. I can give it to you in writing. If that woman was not holding that camera at that moment, everybody would have said that she's doing it for publicity. Or there is some personal rivalry.
Ma'am,
Yes, ma'am.
ma'am, I'll speak if you're done.
Yeah, sure.
Right. Ma'am, on the note of internalized misogyny, we know that also today is Mother's Day. So on that note, I would like to pose this question that till today, much to everyone's disappointment, women are very much financially dependent on their husbands. And often enough, they are very stuck in a situation with their children. And they cannot get, let's say, domestic abuse or any abuse of that sort by the family. And in the sense that for the protection of their children, they cannot get out of the situation. What do you think is the step to, number one, educate them, and number two, get them out of the situation?
First of all, Nihal, if you have any further questions, we can take that because you're right, the discussion should always be dynamic. It cannot be a one-way
Yes,
street.
ma'am. I'm playing the villain's role over here. Although I do very much agree to your point that just because there's a certain number of people who are exploiting the law doesn't mean the others who are actually being exploited shouldn't be able to access it. That's a
Exactly.
very clear point. So I'm trying to play the villain's role so that this conversation
That
becomes
is
more
actually
dynamic.
great because there'll be a lot of people having these questions, and I
Yes,
think we should
ma'am.
open the
Yes,
chat
ma'am.
box for them, right? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So, Somali, coming back to your question, I feel the first thing that we should do is obviously education.
Right.
And that will only and only come when daughters' parents will be treated at par legally and socially as the parents of the son. The day I am as worried as, say, Nihal is, that who will take care of my parents? And normally parents who have only daughters, the daughters are actually careful about this. But whether there's a son in the family, the onus is on the son, which is wrong. The liability should also be equal. Because I feel till the time the daughters are not, the society will not tell a girl, you have to take care of your old parents. Who will take care of them? Till that period, the parents of the girl will also not support the girl's decision of being financially independent. There is a reason why at one point of time there was difference in the education a son received and a daughter received. Because the son was the budhape ka sahara or the, who will take care of me in my old age? And the daughter had to go to somebody else's. And I've seen very, very educated women where they want to give back to their parents. The parents say, no, we can't take from you. What will people say? We can't take from you. So it's till one, A, that thing is taken care of. B, we need, it's not a legal point, but obviously, as we are saying, that everything counts till there is equal participation in the household chores. Like, we should not just help our mothers, right? It's our house too. It's not her primary job and then we are helpers or assistants or whenever she calls us. Although all of us are somewhere guilty of that.
That is internalized patriarchy.
That is. Nobody would tell their fathers to make tea if they're tired. Right? So, second, because you only have 24 hours. You only have X amount of energies. Thirdly, I always feel that as a country, we either see women as sexual objects or we see women as goddesses or keep them at a pedestal. The women in our lives are here. So whenever somebody is here, you can either respect. We are not treating we don't treat our women, I would say, like humans. Either we treat them as downtrodden if they're somebody else's family, or our mothers and our sisters are kept at a pedestal where we have to protect them. So equal opportunity is gone either way. So I think gender neutral upbringing of this generation, which I'm seeing in a lot of families these days, that will also play. Like personally, I don't have an option of not having a car. And I know all of you also don't. Neither Nihal should nor you should. The day I want to sit at home, it will not be taken well by my family, right?
No.
Same like Nihal's. So that is what I'm talking about. And lastly, I feel at the end of the day, you can have each and every skill which can be outsourced. Cooking can be outsourced, although I feel it's a very important life skill. Dishwashing can be outsourced. Making money cannot be outsourced. So financial stability is something we should take care of. That should be an important part of the biodata when we are getting married in the married market, right?
Right.
Then we can say that women are gold diggers for saying that, we want a man who's doing this well. Right?
So we are basically stuck in every way. Ruja asked that how can a woman be proved that she's a subject of mental harassment by their mother or father-in-law?
Mental harassment is actually very difficult to prove. There is a reason why every domestic violence complaint you'll see will have some instances of physical abuse, despite the law being very clear. So I feel the only thing that you can do is, I always say a draft or a plaint or a petition should be like a good novel. When I read it, if I'm a third party and I read it, I should not find loopholes. I should not find, okay, the mindset out this place is something different and at this place is something different. So reread it and make a flow. Secondly, what we can do is there are a lot of times you must have seen that petitions, especially matrimonial petitions, have colloquial words in it, in quotes. Say if I belong to a Hindi speaking belt, I'll have quotes, dialogue of the person who said that, the family member. Why is that? Because if you actually replicate that, and if the other person, being a judge or anybody, hears that person talking, I know this is how this person talks. So I get a feeling that, this may have happened. Then the linkages should be very good. It should not go haywire. The flawless the story will be, the better. Secondly, mental abuse, it's very difficult to prove it by evidence. So because of that, your statement and your cross-examination will play a major role. If the opposite counsel breaks you there and proves to the court that you're lying, then there'll be a problem. But if you survive that stage, then it is really, really helpful. And that is why I always, advise people to stick as much as possible to reality. Because if anybody of you has watched Drishyam,
Yes.
it's a beautiful example of A, alibi, and B, reliving the story. Even his 6-7-year-old daughter spoke the same thing. Why? He made her live it. So whenever you're going to the court for any case, obviously not for a PMLA or anything where most of the things are documentary, but where humans are involved, it can be even a partition case. Because majority litigation in India is between family members. It can be husband and wife, it can be brother and sister, it can be familial property disputes. If you pick up cases, you'll see the majority of the cases are against people we know and know very well. So whenever humans are involved, that human element needs to be there. And for that, you need to, once you've drafted, once you've put your story on a piece of paper, which is called your petition or your plaint or your complaint, you have to live it. There is no other way. Because I've seen so many times, we as defense counsel especially, cross-examination is a huge, huge stage. And that is what makes or breaks a case in a lot of cases.
Right. So, ma'am, I would like to ask this question on pertaining on the ongoing LGBTQIA plus community battle. So, ma'am, if the battle comes as a win and we are legally allowed to marry that way, ma'am, what effect will it have on the personal laws and on the various aspects that is?
So I understand what you're talking about, and I think that is something the SG also, Tushar Mehta also brought up, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Because we as a society have been although I think it should happen. First of all, I'll give my stance on my personal opinion. And I'm very, very hopeful considering how the Supreme Court is, and especially our CJI thinks. Right? Now, personal laws are a very, very tricky place to be. Because as I said, Hindu law is codified. So the law has already interfered in that sphere. Although there were huge protests way back when it had happened. People were on the roads because of that. But say a Muslim law, they still follow their personal laws. So will it affect them? And how will it affect them? Same with regard to say Parsis or Christians or whoever. That is why the Supreme Court is saying that we'll only go in for the Special Marriage Act. We are not entering Hindu law or Muslim law or any other personal law at this very moment because it's a very tight rope, and we think we should go there step by step.
Right.
The society is still in an evolving stage and not an involved society. Right? So firstly, we are only talking about the Special Marriage Act. And obviously, if you get married in the Special Marriage Act, your personal laws are not applicable to a lot of extent. So your inheritance will become a problem. For that, say, make sure you write a will. Because otherwise you will face a problem. Right? Then, it's a very, I don't agree with this, but obviously there'll be a problem. Like, very crudely, some people are saying, who will be the woman in a domestic violence case? Right? Say, we talked of inheritance. Then we can talk of, say, dowry harassment. Then we can talk of all these laws. All these laws will be affected, and it is a fact. But my only submission always will remain. Was there no problem when we thought in 1955 that we'll change a relationship which is meant for 7 lifetimes to a relationship which can be severed? Was there no hue and cry when in 1956 daughters were given equal rights as that of the son? At that time also, the rights were not absolute. Even today, they are not absolute. There are many things which can be changed in the law, but did that stop the legislature and the courts to do that? No. So, Will there be problems? Yes, there'll be problems. But we can't not make laws because of teething problems. And I feel they're only teething problems. They can be solved, and I feel as a society they will be solved. And we can always take our constitution, we've taken inspiration from so many countries. So why can't we take inspiration on matrimonial laws from countries who are already there?
Right.
But it's very difficult at this moment, to be honest, to predict, because it's all about human behavior. And I don't feel that there can be a situation that if a heterosexual couple files for a divorce, a homosexual couple would not. Obviously, they are also humans. So today they are in love, they may fall out of love. And then there will be divorce battles. And then they can also turn dirty the way the so-called normal marriages turn dirty, right? Because then there'll be the amount of family interference in these marriages will be way more.
Right. So, ma'am, Supraja Miss also asked that Section 34 of IPC is neither bailable or non-bailable. Does
I can't hear you.
police have power to arrest any person who is said as the accused person under Section 134 of IPC?
Section 34 is never an offense. Section 34 is always read with some other section. Section 34 only says that there was more than one people doing some act. You know, it is like Section 34, there's only one importance, and that first of all, you can never be charged with Section 34. Right? You can always be charged with, say, a dacoity or a rape or a murder, read with Section 34. That there were other people also helping you in the offense. And the importance of Section 34, I think, is that if that person has been acquitted, why not me? Or the other way around, right? There are some things like that. That is why there's no point of a bailable or a non-bailable.
Right.
It's not an offense. It's just an enabling section.
Right. Ma'am, Ahmed wanted to ask a question. Sir, you can unmute and please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Sorry. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm really enjoying the presentation. I find I believe there is a very interesting topic that must be raised in this kind of gathering, and this is in relation to the recent news about a particular footballer where his wife, it turned out that they decided to divorce each other, and basically the property was unable, normally we have this rule of equitable distribution or equitable division of property after divorce. I believe you understand what I'm trying to say. So my question is very simple, because I discovered that you made reference to percentage. Yeah, maybe percentage of abuse, making reference to the number of women that are actually abusing the law or not. So I really, if we want to base those measures on that, so I want to ask, in this kind of situation, particularly on the issue of marital property, the law on marital property, if we see, basing it on statistically, we'll see that, of course, even till date, I can say it anyway, that even till date, men, they earn, like, statistically, most men earn more than women, statistically, in the world. Statistically, like, no matter what we can say, but till date, we still know that most men, they earn more than the women in the world. So my own question is that this kind of law that has to do with separation of property, separation or equitable distribution of property after divorce, can you say that this kind of law is some kind of discriminatory to men? Automatically, if we are basing it on the statistics, looking at the fact that the spouse in the marriage, men which the men who are also partner, in a marriage are usually the spouse or the couples that earn more, of course, than the other part of the marriage. So another question, I want to relate this actually to the concept of domestic violence, actually, because we also have domestic violence. Statistically, I don't know. Let me start from my own country, maybe in Nigeria. Statistically, we can say that, of course, women are the most mostly the victims of domestic violence. So let us say that in that situation, when laws are made, laws give recognition more to women, of course, that okay, basically women that are domestically violated so and so they should be protected. In that situation, they base it on statistics. They do not consider men in those situations. And of course, there are situations where men, of course, can also be domestically violated, but the law decided not to recognize it. Okay, can we say that there is some kind of imbalance in this kind of situation in relation to the issue of marital separation?
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for the question. And it's a very important question. But technically, I am a lawyer who is only certified in Indian laws. So I can talk with regard to the country I can practice in. So number one, in India, there is nothing like you said, an equitable distribution. And that I feel is a problem with India. That is why women have to go and prove that they need basic sustenance. So if Nigeria has this law, I think it's a very good law to have. Number two, as you said, the majority of men earn more than women. It's a fact. As you said, statistically, it is true. Number three, we need to see what is the reason behind women earning less. Are they inferior to men? And every time that I say that, or anybody says that women and men are equal, everybody thinks of, physical power. What we are talking about is cerebral equality. Whenever you see state board toppers in India, they are women. Whenever you see national toppers, majority are women. But somehow, whenever you see jobs or whenever you see higher jobs, these days even Indian judiciary, entry level, women judges are getting selected more. But somehow when you look at the Supreme Court of India or the High Courts, there are more men as judges. So there is a glass ceiling, which is the truth. People don't see women as good employees because, again, the society energy has to come into place. Women are the caregivers of the house. They are supposed to take care of the house, go there, work, and then come back and take care of the house. So that is also a factor. They are not given equal opportunities both at home and at workplaces, and it is true. Because obviously, majority of offices, the heads are men. If your reporting officer is a man, there are more chances of him giving opportunities to men. There have been instances where there are women reporting heads and then women are getting opportunities there. But let's not forget, patriarchy is internalized and misogyny is internalized even in women. So there are situations where even they don't give opportunities. So women don't even have equal opportunities. So I would say if a woman is earning X amount, she is for sure putting more effort and more work than her contemporary who are of the opposite gender. So, and more than that, statistically, women hold 1 or 2% of the property in the world. They are earning way more than this. But their money is not managed by them. I've seen so many cases where there is it. Secondly, I'd say, okay, fine, the woman is not even earning. So when you're going out there and earning, there's a saying, behind every successful man, there is a woman. But the problem is, she's in the background. If somebody is your spine, I can't think of living without a spine. Nobody can. I can't just one day separate the spine and said, I lived my own life, you didn't help me. And now whatever I've done with your support is all mine. So I agree. There may be cases, as you're saying, that women are also committing domestic violence. In India, the Domestic Violence Act initially said that the aggressor can only be an adult male. Later on, courts observed that no, the victims are normally women, but don't mother-in-laws or sister-in-laws or mothers or female relatives trouble the woman. So then adult male was struck down. So do women commit domestic violence? Yes, they do. But what is the percentage of women committing domestic violence on men? See, even look at the sheer, okay, so there is physical abuse. Technically, the strengths are very different. Physical strengths. Financial abuse, if they are not making as much money, what are the chances of them taking care of that money? Although there are a few households where the woman is taking control of the finances. But again, what's the percentage we are talking about? So whenever we see a law, we have to see this, that in respect to the society, it cannot be read in isolation. There is a rule of interpretation, which is called the mischief rule. It says that every law is made to remedy a mischief or a problem in the society. So if there would not have been a law if there would not have been a problem. And with time, courts do evolve. Courts have evolved in India in so many respects. Initially, when you would file a 498A, there would have been instant arrests. Now courts are very against arrests. In domestic violence, initially there was misrepresentation of income from either side, both the husband and the wife. Now, after the Supreme Court has said that there should be an income affidavit of both your income and your liabilities, along with your bank statements, right? Then the shared household. Initially, right to residence was with regard to the house, the shared household definition has evolved so much. The moment we would file a domestic violence case for a wife, the parents of the husband would disown the son. Why? He's no more our son. He and his wife are troubling us. So now neither he nor our daughter-in-law can stay in the house. Now the Supreme Court has come up to this and say that even if the husband, if they have lived together at any point of time, even if the husband has no ownership, it is a shared household. So there are so many things that the law evolves with. And obviously, the answer is in the society. You cannot isolate. That is why when Ahmed asked, I can't give a perfect answer to his question because I don't know how the society in his country works. Because I have not experienced that. And law cannot be read in isolation from the society. That is one thing I've learned over a period of my practice. Your answer will always, whenever you see a Supreme Court judgment, if you think on pure logic and understanding of the current situation, you'll find the answer. Whenever you're researching for a law point.
Ma'am, I do have a point to add to yours. I do think the Supreme Court is taking measures to overcome these sort of false allegations being placed, especially now that under Section 498A itself, a preliminary investigation has to be conducted before arresting the person or before placing an FIR. So I think that's a great move in order to protect these
There
rights
have
of
been
men.
a lot of such moves, and there will be more. There will be more. And every acquittal, one thing is very important, every acquittal cannot be seen as a false complaint. Acquittals in criminal cases are, sometimes just go and read a case file prepared by the police. As a defense counsel, we have the best of our times taking out their faults. As a counsel for the complainant, it's a nightmare. It is a nightmare. Very recently, I went to a court representing a complainant. It was my first hearing. The court staff didn't know me. I would not name where the court was or whose the court was. The court staff said, they were talking among themselves. They were saying that there has to be an acquittal. The public prosecutor, who is the complainant's advocate. And as an advocate, you have to believe that your client is correct. And that is why we as defense counsels win cases, right? Even if our client has committed a murder, he's right. And it's our duty to save him. The public prosecutor is in favor of the husband's family and saying, poor family, they've been falsely charged. How can you say they've been falsely charged? And when you read the file, the investigation is shoddy. There is no point, sometimes there is no evidence to prove a case. You can't prove a criminal case with just a story or a complaint. And it's not the complainant's duty to give you evidence. They can make complaints, they can help you, they can assist you. But they as laymen just trust the police. They don't know if what is to be supported by which evidence. So all acquittals are not false complaints. And I'm not only talking of complaints made by women, I'm talking of complaints in general. The prosecution case is weak, and that is the reason majority of defense counsels are winning and not the public prosecutors.
So, ma'am, I think that is the end of today's conversation, and it was a delight to have you as our guest. Thank you for joining us today, ma'am. As ma'am explained throughout her presentation that laws exist for all. Women have been wronged periodically and historically, and that's why the legal umbrella has been widened for the protection of the same. So there exist various provisions, statutory arrangements for the same. And access being the key, we must be educated and united to combat the issues. Thank you, ma'am, for the presentation. And with a note of thanks to you, I would like to conclude this meeting.
I would like to say something. Thank you so much for not making me give a presentation. I loved how it was interactive. I loved how you had your questions. Both of you had your own minds and were representing two different sides, and that is what made it interesting. So thank you. I didn't have to speak or give a monologue. I'm so happy. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
ma'am. We would like to thank you on behalf of LRA once again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being great. And so many were great.
Thank you so much.
Session done.
You settle there.
Yeah, it's done. She's the thanked her. I mean, she's leaving now.